Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning.
Good afternoon, all, and welcome to the Rebel News Daily live stream. My name is Dakota Christensen, and today I am joined by the one and only Ian Miles Chong. How's it going, Ian? How you doing today?
Hey, happy to be here.
Yeah, it's good to be chatting with you. For anyone who is new here, doesn't know quite what's going on, we typically have our daily live streams at noon Eastern Time. We do it every single weekday, Monday through Friday. We have a rotation of hosts who come through, and we essentially talk about news of the day, stuff that's trending, give our takes on what's going on, and, try to have a good time here. You can send us chats. No matter what platform you're on, we're streaming on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, SuperU, Getter. You can send us chats in. We'll read our chats off to you and essentially have a good time here, hanging out, talking, going through the news, talking about this crazy world we're living in. So we're going to jump basically right into it because there's a lot of stuff going on here. As ever, crazy world. So, you know what? Let's see. First thing we want to talk about here. Let's see. Trudeau Liberals here. Let's start with a nice bit of Canadian news. Trudeau Liberals gave $600,000 to influencers to praise the government. Now, I mean, I'm not super surprised here. We've seen so much of this sort of thing happening lately because...
Yeah, with Biden, right?
Yeah, like with Biden, with those TikTok influencers. Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, governments are having a perpetual PR problem. And so, of course, let's just... social media is the way to go. Pay out these influencers and try to pump Trudeau a little bit because clearly he's been suffering. I mean, I imagine yesterday, I missed yesterday's live stream. I imagine we talked quite a bit about Trudeau getting eviscerated in the, what was that, an EU council
European
that was going
Parliament.
on there?
The European Parliament.
Yeah, where there is just, a member of the European Parliament, one after another coming up and just ripping into him for, how he treated his own people during the trucker convoy and all of that.
One of them was wearing a T-shirt which was like pro-trucker.
Yeah, it's so good. Because, I mean, the whole time that Trudeau has been in Europe, he's been going on about having to stand together strong with NATO to defend democracy. And, he stands with the people to defend democracy and all of that, just gaslighting so hard.
Absolutely.
But his international image has been destroyed, right?
Nobody likes him, right? I mean, he buys his own nonsense, and his followers buy it, but nobody else does.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it depends. I feel like if you're diehard, someone who's really into the Canadian news cycle and you're getting all this gaslighting coming through you, I can imagine some being like, yeah, you know what? Trudeau really isn't too bad. He is a champion of democracy. All that stuff, that's just alt-right conspiracies. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Blackface, it's
Photoshop.
We all make mistakes, right? Don't worry. It's okay. We can forgive him, even though if a conservative did that or anyone else, they'd be so done.
Forever.
Cancel culture comes for everyone, except for Trudeau, of course, because he's the great,
the
great
coming
Justin
for Russia
Trudeau.
now.
Yeah,
they're canceling Russia.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that's great. Great thing to see. Your tax dollars hard at work there, helping pay for the, essentially PR campaign of Justin Trudeau and his failing government. Don't believe your lying eyes. Canada's doing great. Your government loves you. We're spending your tax dollars effectively. You're having the best time of your life. Housing prices aren't going up. Prices of food, gas, everything, that's not going up. You're living the happy paradise of your life.
One day you will own nothing and you'll be happy.
Exactly.
That's the way things are.
Oh, yes. And I mean, so our overall theme, the headline we gave to the live stream today is, I believe it was the West is self-destructing, which, I mean, this is just it's a common theme, right, that we've been seeing over the past years now. It's a trend that the West is it's imploding. We are tearing ourselves apart, right? And
it's lost itself.
Yeah. Exactly.
It used to have an identity, right? The West used to stand for something. I mean, the West is responsible for Western philosophy, and now they're trying to erase that. They're erasing, classical authors. They no longer teach, Aristotle or Plato in some universities because they're white men. It's absurd.
Exactly. It's the sort of things that Trudeau is out there championing out in Europe, well, pretending to champion out in Europe, saying, I stand for democracy and liberal values and all that. But what he actually is really shoving down every single person's throat is completely illiberal, anti-Western values, the things that all these basically Marxist ideology is pushing, whether it's you know within gender or race or you know economic Marxism, no matter what it is, they're all just different variations of Marxist theories that are pitting people against one another, and in
because
the process,
real communism's never been tried yet.
Yeah, never been tried, and we're just destroying the Western identity, and we got so many stories and clips today that help really show that, just you know, in the most recent news cycle, what's been going on. So you know, let's throw to one of our videos here. Because you mentioned, you know, Russia, and of course, all eyes are on Russia and Ukraine. Let's throw up that vid of Putin citing the cancellation of J.K. Rowling as an example of the West's cancel culture. Because there's some interesting stuff I like to talk about there. But yeah, let's throw to that clip, shall we?
They cancelled Joan Rowling recently, the children's author. Her books are published all over the world, even just because she didn't satisfy the demands of gender rights. They're not trying to cancel our country. They cancelled Joan.
Yep.
So, I mean, because we were talking about this a little bit earlier when we were off camera here, but it's interesting because we were mentioning how everything Putin says, it's as if he can never say anything right, because he's the villain in this situation. Anything that comes out of his mouth must be evil or wrong and must be the antithesis of truth, right?
That's because people watch too much Marvel movies, so they watch too much Disney. This is their brain on Star Wars. He's the ancient evil. He's Darth Vader. He's got to be stopped. Everything he says is wrong. Everything he does is evil. He's a madman. You know, he's on steroids. He's suffering from 5 different illnesses. He's about to die. You know, they're just coming up with every single reason to demonize this man. And not only that, I mean, it'd be one thing if they just went after him. They're going after every single Russian. You know, you speak Russian. You're a Russian author. You're dead for 50 years. They're still coming after you. They're canceling you.
Yeah. Exactly. And like I'm sure it is, of course, is very well in Putin's political interests to be pointing out the hypocrisy of the West and to be pointing out like, hey guys, J.K. Rowling is being canceled because she's standing up for women and pushing, you know, a more classical ideal of feminism when she's pushing against some of the more radical trans ideology, like, you know, men being in women's sports and that whole sort of thing. And so it's just, it's funny to see that no matter what, because of course people going on about this, right? Because this just really helps to affirm that they're right, because Putin is the one pointing out the West's hypocrisy. Therefore, that hypocrisy must not exist because big bad evil Putin is pointing it out. But
that's right, And then you have people who agree with him, but they're afraid to say so because he said it, or they'll say, well, you know, he's being a cynical politician. He has never said this before. It's like, well, actually, if you listen to his speeches for the past 20 years, he has been on this culture war thing for 20 years, I would say.
Exactly.
You know, and he knows since the 90s, even since the 90s. So this idea that he's just like, you know, banking in on this to be a cynic, I don't think so. No, this is his thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think it takes someone from the outside to really show us just how muddled our own thinking has become in our own internal debates here. And so even if it is someone like Putin who we paint as the eternal villain, it's like, yes, he's doing all sorts of terrible, evil stuff as any, you know, dictator guy would do. He's invading Ukraine right now, all sorts of stuff. But it's like there are also so many things we're doing wrong. And I mean, like,
that's right. I mean, it's like the issue is that the West likes to point fingers and says, look, Putin's doing this, Putin's invading this. What about when the West invaded Baghdad? What about when it invaded Belgrade and it bombed it and 5,000 people died? I mean, wasn't that just as bad, if not worse?
Yeah,
possibly?
Exactly. And it's like we also...
50,000 people died in Baghdad in the first month, and no one talks about it. It's like, oh, I guess they're Iraqis. They're brown, so therefore it's okay.
Yeah. Exactly. And again, that's like, oh, but of course, we're not racist. We're anti-racist. We're woke progressives. So
yeah, we're doing this for democracy.
Democracy.
Oh, yeah.
And again, even like looking at Putin, and we're like, oh, how evil he is, and so we paint him as the villain. But then Zelensky himself and all of Ukraine, like that thing was Candace Owens in the New York Times thing. I imagine you would have seen that.
Yeah.
With
I saw that. Yeah.
I thought that was so golden because it really helps illustrate the point of like, for so long, all of these, you know, mainstream large news outlets have been reporting on the corruption and all of the really sketchy dealings going on in Ukraine. And so, but suddenly Putin invades Ukraine, and since Putin's the bad guy, Ukraine is suddenly the saint state of they're perfect. They're this idyllic democracy. Yeah,
they're
exactly.
like superheroes. They're Captain America. Zelensky's Rambo. I mean, they're making up quotes for him nowadays. They're saying that he said, "Give me a gun and give me a ride" or something. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's
he never said that. He never said that, and he even admitted it later on. That was completely made up by some State Department. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was the "I don't need a ride. I need more ammo" or something like that. Which I figured that was like, sure, he said that, but that's just him doing a nice PR thing. Like, yeah, that'll be a nice Churchillian soundbite. Interesting.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And if you look into, I think Mint Press News did a pretty good article on this. It's massive, right? I mean, if you've got the time for it, go to mintpressnews.com and check it out. It goes on about how they're selling you this war. They have hired marketing firms like Edelman. Edelman's like one of the largest PR firms in the world. Yeah. And they're doing PR for Ukraine. It's like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing where it's like, yes, Putin's bad, Russia's bad, they're invading Ukraine, but it's like, it doesn't mean Ukraine is this saintly perfect thing. Doesn't mean Zelensky's a saint.
Always had problems.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, I mean, they are corrupt to the core, right? And people like to claim that Putin's playing up the whole Azov battalion angle, how they're Nazis. But if you actually look at the New York Times' reporting and you look at the United Nations' reporting, the Office of Human Rights, it says here they have been guilty of war crimes for the past 8 years. They've been murdering journalists and murdering civilians, torturing people. I mean, there's one of a crucifixion of innocent people. And, I mean, people have been convicted over it, but Ukraine somehow clears these people, and they work in the government. I mean, the chief of police of Kiev is a neo-Nazi, openly. Has tattoos.
Yeah,
it's like,
I think that goes back to the thing where it's like, oh, well, if Putin said it, then of course it's wrong or evil. It's like, if his justification for invading Ukraine is, to denazify Ukraine. Well, of course, now that's just another lie by Putin. There are no Nazis in Ukraine. Like, if you point out the fact that there are actual, real, modern-day neo-Nazis in Ukraine, then you're just playing into Putin's side. You're just pro-Putin. It's like, okay.
Yeah, you're putting up fake news. It's like
fake
New
news.
York Times fake news.
Yeah,
really?
Exactly. And then there's, of course,
United Nations fake news.
Yeah, and the eternal rebuttal of, well, Zelensky's Jewish, so there can't be neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Okay. They've got a Jewish president. Or, it's like, oh, okay.
Well, whatever.
Yeah, so
like that's not a rebuttal at all. I mean, if you just follow the money, you'll see that they themselves are funded by an oligarch, right?
Yeah.
And he's using them as like his personal bodyguards. Doesn't matter. I mean, the fact is they're good soldiers. They're amazing fighters. They're hard to defeat. The Russians are having a hard time with them, and they're the best defense that Ukraine has. And that's why they cling to them. And they also have an undue amount of power over the government because of how much military power they have in the country. Yeah, they may not have a lot of parliament seats, but I don't think it really matters. It's Ukraine we're talking about here. It's not like it's a democracy.
Exactly. Well, that's the funny thing is we've painted Ukraine as this perfect democracy. I think like the bottom line there is, okay, so we've got two sketchy, corrupt, Eastern European, Russian powers. One invades the other, and so like suddenly we have to take sides and it's black and white, good versus evil.
Yeah.
And
it's like what good country tortures prisoners? I mean, you had a guy from the medical brigade going on TV, on television, on Ukrainian television, and saying that he has given the order to his doctors to castrate every single Russian male that they come across. I mean, wow, right? And so when I posted that, because, it was forwarded to me, some people are like, oh, that's fake news. It's fake news. He didn't say that, but he actually literally said it. He even admitted it on Facebook that he had said it. And then there were people who were saying, well, it's fine, because it's war. Bad things happen. It's like, okay, why do we even have the Geneva Convention if that's the case?
Yeah, exactly. And those same people saying it's war, bad things happen, are the ones who would be wildly outraged if anything else happened. Like, this is a breach of international law. These are war crimes. How dare they?
They cross the border. They cross state lines. How
cross
dare
state
they?
lines. Yeah. Oh, exactly. So, I mean, like, again, like, my allegiance, I would say, or my sympathies, my heart goes out to the innocent civilians, the people caught in between this. Like, we've got two corrupt warring states, massive militaries going at it, a couple of...
If we count America.
Yeah, it's true. Count the states. Belarus, we could throw in there.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean,
there are no clean hands here. European Union, NATO, United States. I mean, what was Euromaidan? I mean, it was a color revolution staged by the United States of America.
Yeah,
right, and
exactly.
it overthrew the government that was there. And yeah, it was probably corrupt, but why did they meddle? And this idea that Putin's just this evil man who's invading another country for no reason. Well, come on, let's be realistic here. Nothing happens without a reason.
Yeah, I think everyone's so obsessed with taking sides over these dividing lines between nations and governments when it's like, all right, guys, let's remember the real divide is
sport.
Yeah, it's like, all right, guys, there's the people and there are these corrupt governments. Let's remember to support the people who are actually getting caught in the middle of this, the suffering civilians, the refugees, people who are dying so needlessly over so much stuff, where it's like two heads of state decide to battle it out and millions die. It's kind of the theme of humanity over the past. Yeah.
Even more could die. Now they're saying, you have these warmongers in Congress who are saying, let's enact a no-fly zone. Let's put boots on the ground. Let's fight Russia. It's like, what do you think is going to happen? First of all, the civilians are going to get caught in the crossfire. Secondly, you're probably going to cause the deaths of tens of thousands of troops, if that, and that's the minimum. And beyond that, I mean, it could escalate to nuclear war at that point. Is it worth it? Really?
Exactly.
We're going to all die for Ukraine?
Because that's the factor. That's the factor we didn't have in previous world wars is nuclear capabilities. It's like, all right, guys, we gotta we can't keep appeasing Hitler. We gotta go in. We gotta invade. We gotta stop him before he goes further. It's like at this point there is that extra factor to take into consideration. All right,
and also Putin's not Hitler. He's not mentally ill. He has told the West what he's up to for about a decade now, and they're like, oh, no, we're just going to keep expanding NATO. What do you think is going to happen? He told you what was going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying it's okay to invade any other country, but he did tell them.
Yeah.
He gave them a choice.
Yeah, so basically, things are not nearly as black and white as you'd see, and this is something we have repeatedly talked about here. But, I mean, so as... because we see Russia, who is, making their moves. China has always been kind of in the back burner, building up and helping to push the West further along into its death. And we have us in here. We have our, adversaries in the Middle East who would love nothing more than to see the death of America and the West. Yep. Well, let's dive in a little more into how the West is slowly killing itself. So,
for sure.
Something that I would love to actually, on that topic of our enemies, North Korea as well. Let's show people that Kim Jong-un ad because it's so good.
It's amazing.
Let's just roll that and we'll talk about this after. This is. Man, I love it. It's just so good.
It's like 1980s.
Yeah,
it's like a bad movie from the 1980s, like a parody of a bad movie from the 1980s.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I feel like that's some like really sweet clip I would have thrown together on like iMovie back in the day for my YouTube channel, doing some cool 80s movie parody. Yep. But no, that is a real ad from Kim Jong-un himself.
And that is a real nuclear bomb or whatever,
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, okay.
Like, you
can't even laugh at it. Not really.
Yeah, because that's the thing. He's got this child in charge of this totalitarian state showing off his nuke. So, yes, as I was saying, because I just thought that was a nice little segue there, like literally the enemies of the West are all just sitting there looking at us, laughing as we tear ourselves apart.
Yes, they've
got nukes. They've been building up their nations. They've been doing whatever necessary, especially when it comes to like China, right? And we see all that China's been doing to help promote like so many essentially values of strength within its own society to make sure its youth are doing actually good, productive things while making us
actually succeed at schools, be good at math. Not be weird, I mean, they have banned certain kinds of media. They're like, oh yeah, this kind of, this stuff where you're promoting gender ideology, it's banned. Yeah, they're banning it.
Yeah, exactly.
They banned it.
Meanwhile, they like to help push and nudge us, encourage us in all of the insane stuff we've been doing. Like
it's the same with Al Jazeera, right? Like AJ Plus, they that's Qatar, right? And and they're like the least woke place on the planet. And
Yeah.
meanwhile, they have AJ Plus, and all they do is promote gender ideology. Gee,
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Exactly.
I wonder why.
Exactly. Which, on the topic of gender ideology, I would love to show Matt Walsh's "What Is a Woman"
it's
trailer, because I mean, let's give
glorious.
a little context before we show this. All right, like,
Yep.
okay, Ian, I think you'd be good. Like, explain the whole "What is a woman" thing for Matt Walsh, and sort of what's inspired this. Give a little context before we show the trailer.
Okay, so Matt Walsh, Daily Wire host, he went on Dr. Phil in, I think, January, and he had a debate with a bunch of people there, some weird people, and he asked one of them, what is a woman? And they couldn't answer it. No one could answer that question. I mean, it's such a basic question, right? And he found that through asking that question, many people, especially progressives, are unable to give you a straight answer. They can't just say, oh, a woman's got a uterus and a man doesn't, right? Like, they won't just say that. They will try to, discombobulate the whole argument. And, he found that by traveling across the world, asking that question gets a lot of interesting results.
Yeah, exactly. And so,
Yep.
yeah, let's go ahead and roll that.
I have traveled all over the world for the past year asking one simple question. What is a woman? What is a woman?
What is it?
What is it?
I don't know.
People are laughing. Is that a dumb question? I've been asking everybody this, and almost nobody can answer it.
What is a woman?
What is a woman?
That's a great question.
If one person could tell me what a woman is. Congressman, thank you for being here.
I think this interview is over. Let's turn off the cameras.
Just wanted to know, what is a woman?
And you're not going to find out.
It's not a complicated question.
Oh man, I can't wait to actually watch that full thing. It looks so great. But I mean,
It's great. Yeah.
because the full issue there though is like, it really just goes to like, it kind of comes back also to like the J.K. Rowling being canceled for promoting womanhood.
Womanhood. Yeah,
know?
Yeah, she said that, because in Scottish legislation, they're trying to make it so that women no longer are classified as women, and that, anyone who identifies as a woman could basically access women's spaces, particularly prisons, where it is an issue. There is history of sexual abuse by male identifying inmates, right? Well, sorry, female identifying male inmates. That's what I mean. Yeah.
It's like we're at the point where the modern day progressives are at the point where they are destroying the very thing that classical progressives fought to defend. Like women's rights and women's spaces are now under attack by modern day so-called progressives. Like,
That's right.
racism, like critical race theory itself is instituting segregation. It is promoting and saying, we have to segregate because inherently, if you're just promoting racial equality, right, then you are perpetuating racism because the white people are inherent oppressors and black people are inherent victims. And so we need to separate them and shove one down and lift the other. And, they can't intermix or else, they're going to be mean to one another. Like, it blows my mind.
Microaggressions. Yeah. And it's not just, like regular insults or something. It's microaggressions. It's like, oh, you complimented a person. Well, that's racist.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay. It's like that subconscious, like unconscious bias training is now a thing that's like in all of our governments now. That it's like,
Home Depot, right? Home Depot's doing unconscious bias training. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Home Depot, that was the unpacking your privilege thing. I was looking at that because cause like right now there's this like video I'm planning to do, just like a primer on critical race theory, because there's this bill in Ontario that's really pushing it, Bill 67, that we've been kind of campaigning against. That's like next level instituting critical race theory in all of our
that's scary.
All of our schools and everything.
That will cause the destruction of Canada. Simply,
yeah, exactly. And so, like, I've been working on a video for that, and I was looking at a bunch of critical race theory stuff, and that was one of the things. I'm like, oh yeah, that Home Depot thing of unpacking your privilege and the unconscious bias training. I mean, it's crazy to see that, because like when you focus so much on all of these racial differences and divides, like you are inflaming these divisions. You are pushing racial divide.
Creating problems. Yeah, creating problems where none exist. I mean, this is why it's banned in Russia. By the way, Russia has like 100 different minorities. It's not white people. Yeah. Many different minorities. And they know, like more than any other country, that inflaming racial divisions is how you get terrorist attacks. I mean, look at Chechnya a few years ago, right? I mean, they were bombing schools and such, and that was because of racial divisions, and they got rid of it. obviously.
Well, exactly. And it's like, it goes back to the whole thing of Death of the West. Like, how better else to destroy Western society than to push these divisions and watch it,
Yep.
you know, the infighting, because you have...
And I don't even know they're the ones doing it, because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's college professors. It's
exactly.
it's preschool teachers in schools telling kids you're racist.
Exactly.
Call your parents racist because you're white.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, it could not be more perfect, right? Like, in terms of, like, if your goal was
they
to
don't
destroy...
even have to do anything. They can just sit back
and watch. It's like these harmful ideologies creep in. They just infect all the schools. It's like the host is just tearing itself apart from the inside.
There is a study done by these woke progressives in a social studies department in, I think, the University of Arizona, where they do in fact describe wokeness as a form of virus, and they say that this is how you get more people to spread it. Basically, you find a bunch of hosts, willing hosts, like, you know, male feminist allies, for instance, get them to promote it, and then they become activists, and then, you know, they will transmit this mind virus, you know, meme, so to speak, to a whole bunch of other people. I mean, Hideo Kojima talked about this in Metal Gear Solid. Wow, that's a really cringy reference. But,
Incredible.
I mean, this is what it is. I mean, anyone who's studied, you know, sociology knows that this is what it is, and they're exactly doing this. Yeah,
and it's like, because there's something like, the critical race theory, going back to that, is literally the inverse of the initial, because, like, you know, going back to saying modern day progressives are literally fighting against what classical progressives fought. Like, I always say, like, if I was living in the 60s, honestly, I'd probably be a liberal at this point if we were to just take my current views where I hold and put it back to where we were. Like, the so-called far-right rebel news and most of the views we all hold here, it's like, in the 60s, we would be left-wing progressives. Like, it's wild. But, like, it's like critical...
We're really, you know, moderate conservatives, right? That's what we really are.
Exactly.
I call myself a hardliner. I'm a bit, you know,
bit of a loose cannon wild card out there, you know.
Oh yeah. But definitely not far right. I mean,
exactly. But I mean, like critical race theory itself is literally fighting against, like, the civil rights movement in terms of trying to push, like, racial equality, like Martin Luther King, in terms of the iconic, you know, treat you by the content of your character rather than, you know, your race, than the color of your skin. And now, if you treat someone based off of their individual character and not the color of their skin, you are being, you know, racist and harmful. And you know, you need to see race first and acknowledge that, and then take that into account and say, do the calculation in your head. Oh, if they're white, then they're privileged, and you need to treat them this way. But if they're a person of color, then they're victimized, and you need to treat them this way first because of their experience is different. And it's like so inflaming and divisive, and it's literally a sickness.
Kind of bigotry, right? It's a soft bigotry of basically thinking less of people. Like, you're a minority, therefore you're dumb. You didn't have access to the same education I did. Oh, boo-hoo. You know, it's disgusting.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, I just think of, like, looking around and just thinking, like, man, there's so many things I would love to do and go and be, like, thinking about, you know, just in terms of life's past. Like, oh, what if I end up a career in this place? You're going to this place. And it's like, man, if I did that right now, like, if I had ended up going in this direction and I had been in this place, I would just be sitting there bathing in woke ideology right now. Like, I'd be sitting there being you know, shamed for being white, or like, it's just crazy thing. It's like, and if I'm raising a family in this, you know, I would not want to be raising children, sending them to school where this is the order of the day. Like, it's just crazy.
It's impossible to live in that environment. I mean, I was trapped in it for a while, right? When I used to do entertainment journalism, everybody was woke. You know, well, almost everybody, but most people were woke. And publicly, you had to be woke. You had to virtue signal. And when you're in that environment, man, you feel scrolling through Twitter, just as an example, it's nonstop people complaining about microaggressions. It's just one complaint after the other. It's like, this show is problematic because the main character is a woman who suffers in one episode, and why do they have to make women suffer? And the other one's like, oh, there's not enough trans characters in this game or this movie. And it's like, oh God, like, you just want to yell at these people. You want to shake them, be like, wake up. Just, it's a movie, enjoy it. Holy crap. You know, not every movie review has to be about this. Please, guys,
exactly.
Stop.
Like, sometimes, like, I stop and think, like, I forget sometimes how privileged I am myself to be working where I am, in terms of
same.
I'm working somewhere where I don't have all this, you know, woke Marxist nonsense being shoved down my throat all the time. It's like, like, sometimes I step back and I forget what it was like being outside of this sometimes.
Yep.
And I realize, like, man, if I was working literally anywhere else, it would be having this nonstop shutdown. You're always looking over your shoulder, always having to be careful of what you say, what you think,
It's just a matter of time before you step on a landmine and you get fired.
Exactly. Walking on eggshells, just, before you get canceled, before you say the wrong thing. Yeah.
I've known a few people. I mean, I've interviewed it, like game developers, movie reviewers, movie directors, they would like share an opinion about something totally innocuous, and suddenly it's like, oh, you're not getting jobs anymore. I wonder why that is. And I mean, they talk to me. They're like, yeah, they suspect that it's because they shared an opinion that was not shared by other people. That's why.
Exactly. It's like we are strangling our own, like, free speech is being strangled. Like, there's the whole issue of big tech censorship and government censorship and all of that, which is, a huge threat in and of itself. But even just culturally, we are strangling ourselves in terms of what you can and cannot say. It's like this
self-censorship.
Societal self-censorship is what it is. Like, we are censoring ourselves because if you step out of line, you're going to get canceled. You're going to get, you're going to lose your job. You're going to do this. And it's like a lot of people cannot afford to speak freely in the same way that so many people can't afford, like, if you did not want to take the vaccine for whatever reason and you didn't want to, but can I afford to not take the vaccine and get kicked out of my job? Like in Canada, until like now we're dropping most of our vaccine mandates, most of them. But we got to the point where it's like, well, even if you had a legitimate medical issue, if the government didn't recognize it, it's like, well, I guess I'm going to roll the dice here and be like, is it worth losing my job, or should I just, should I roll the dice here? And, maybe I'll have some terrible reaction to this because it's a possibility because of this medical disorder, but hey, I'll go for it. Oh, but then you get injured. And, so in the government, we did a story on this the other day that because the government set aside $75 million, this is the Canadian government, set aside $75 million for vaccine injury payout. This was something they announced, and that was, they'd earmarked this $75 million for 5 years to pay out vaccine injuries. And so far, I think we A-tipped this, only 5 people in all of Canada have so far been recognized under this program as being eligible for it. Yeah. Wow. So that's that article there you're pulling up there, $75 million for the vaccine injury program. And then another article, I believe it was Sheila who's writing this up. Only 5 people in Canada have so far been recognized under that. And we're getting contacted all the time by so many people saying, they have this, and their doctors are just refusing to acknowledge this, right? And it's
because the doctors are afraid of getting canceled.
Exactly.
Right?
It ties right back into that.
Write their report.
The doctors themselves are afraid of losing their licenses because they themselves get canceled by their own boards. The College of Physicians and Surgeons and whoever regulates the doctors, they themselves, if they end up recognizing this, then they're stepping out of line. And it's so insane to see how this whole kind of twisted system works.
It's cancel culture.
Yeah.
This is what Putin's talking about. And when people, they take it so literally, they're like, well, he's invading a country, it's not the same. Well, it is the same, actually, because cancel culture, this is cancel culture writ large. It's all over the place. You step out of line and suddenly every aspect about you, or in this case, his whole country, is getting canceled.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what?
We are destroying ourselves over it. It's not just that we're canceling one person. It's like we're destroying everything. Like, look at comedy these days. When was the last time you laughed at like a sensitive joke on TV? They don't do that anymore. It's cancelable. Literally.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's cancelable, quite literally, yeah. But also it's like, I was just thinking of, like, underground comedy shows are literally a thing now, where it's like...
They're a thing. It's like we got speakeasies again.
Yeah.
It's like Roaring Twenties.
Exactly. It's like you have to go, because the venue itself is scared of being canceled for hosting someone who's offensive, and you have to, like, find somewhere where you can low-key hide from, the world and have these, like a literal speakeasy.
Prohibition is
underground.
Back, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Prohibition is back. I mean, it's not about booze anymore. It's about speech.
Yeah, it's wild, and so
I hate it.
It's awful.
I absolutely hate it. I want to be done with it. I want to go back to normal. Damn it.
Exactly, but it's so true. But the worst thing is the media egging this on, right? It's like the perpetual
they're the big drivers of it.
Yeah, it's like the corporate media. It's like they're relishing in this death of the West that we've been talking about. Where it's like they want nothing more than to just see us all kick the can and die. Like, article I saw the other day. What was it? I think it was from CNBC. I literally just had it on my phone. It was something like working out and like being fitness obsessed is like a symbol of the alt-right or something like that.
Yeah.
Where
That's
was
right.
this?
Yeah.
I literally
I can't remember exactly where, but I know the article you're referring to. It's like being fit and being health conscious is basically just like Nazism. And then the article literally cites Adolf Hitler and how he had like an exercise regimen, and how he told young German soldiers to exercise instead of learning how to shoot guns because it was better for their health, and they tied it somehow to to modern health, exercise, lifestyles. It's like, really?
Yeah,
wow.
It's like we're at the point now where the media is perpetuating. Literally, like they're advocating for the opposite of anything that's actually good for your own self-progression, right? Where it's like,
that's right,
you want to improve yourself, you want to go and work out, improve your fitness. Like, nope, sorry, that's bad. That's alt-right. That's Nazism. You want to you want to enjoy time with friends and build good relationships, like have a good, healthy family life, good relationships in life. No, that's bad. Like, it's like they want us to be
SSRIs.
Yeah, it's like they
that goddamn pill.
Yeah, they want us to be like lonely, depressed, fat, sitting at home, no relationships.
They want you to celebrate it, to relish it, right? They have these cry sessions. If you've ever been a part of any sort of leftist group, they encourage people to talk about their traumas. Yeah. And so they'll be telling embarrassing stories, here's the thing that happened to me when I was a child and made me really cry, and they celebrate it. It's like, wow, that's disgusting. Why are we celebrating this? Yeah,
that's the thing. It's one thing to have a support group and be like, all right, this is something that I want to get off my chest, and it's like, oh man, that sucks. I'm here for you. But no, this is like, congrats.
This is how you get credit, guys.
The trauma Olympics. Who had the worst experience? Who can claim the most? But and
they will brag about it. They'll be like, well, my dad molested me. They'll say stuff like that, and everybody, starts throwing a pity party, and they make stuff up too, because
well, exactly. If that's a situation, if the pressure is pushing you that direction, why not? But
like my mom raised me to be a serial killer.
Exactly.
How do you beat that? Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, but we're at the point where it's like they want you to be sitting at home. They want you to be fat and out of shape, lonely, isolated, depressed. Like, you want to like be married and have a good family? No, that's bad. Don't do that. Bad. Don't work out.
Being beautiful's bad.
Yeah, being good, healthy, attractive. Yeah, that's all toxic. That's bad for
and this comes
society.
From like feminism in the 90s. I mean, this idea that beauty is bad and ugliness is good comes from the whole objectifying a woman's body, that whole line of thought. I guess it would be in the 1970s, right? But that somehow translated into the world that we live in right now. I doubt the feminists are thinking that far. I doubt they were thinking, make yourself look ugly, be overweight on purpose. They weren't thinking that. They were thinking, don't put on makeup. Don't just cake your face with makeup just to please the men. Do it for yourself. Yeah. And that is fine. That's empowering. But nowadays, it's like, you should get like 1 million piercings. You should tattoo your face. Make your hair cut like the worst thing ever. Yeah. And you look ugly even to you. And that's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Really?
I mean, I was thinking about that sort of concept the other day of where it's almost, I think it's almost like the political pendulum sort of thing. But it's like we take for granted sort of the system that we're living in already. Like the things that we already have in place around us, we kind of take for granted as like, a good working functioning economy and free speech and all of our social institutions. Like they're the points like, okay, that's already a given. So when they think, how can we make this better? How can we progress? It's in like, we should fix this small thing here. It's like rather than point out, hey guys, there's this thing here and we need a little more nuance in this area. I understand this is all good, but maybe fix this. It's like, no, they need to push as hard as they can in this one direction to correct this.
Dismantle everything. Abolish the police.
But
defund the police.
The overcorrection ultimately happens.
Close the prisons. Let everybody go for any crime, literally any crime.
And so all of that stuff you're listing there that we're seeing now is literally, it's like that overcorrection, but it's just like it's gotten out of control. It's the runaway train of there was this one small grievance that at one point needed to be fixed, but then that grievance got fixed, but now it just keeps going. Like every single like one of these critical Marxist theories we're seeing is literally the overcorrection of, it's like, all right, we had the civil rights movement of trying to push for equal rights and equal treatment, regardless of race, but then like you get to that point where it's mostly gone. And then it just keeps going and going, swinging the other way in terms of now we're reverse discrimination.
he said it's necessary, that you cannot be, anti-racist unless you discriminate against the other guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he wants the pendulum to sort of swing back. It's like, come on, this is ridiculous. You're making society hate itself. You're basically promoting genocidal speech is what you're doing. And I'm sure he recognizes it. I mean, these are not good people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all by design.
Just looking down here at our list of headlines, there's another race one that I thought was really interesting. It kind of sparked a good point in my mind on this. It's from Blacklock's reporter talking about it's titled "No Firings for Office Racism." If we could pull that up. I find this shocking in terms of
unless you're white, right? I'm assuming.
No. So here's the thing: it's like there are legitimate instances of racism listed in this article here. Okay. So no firings for office racism, where they're talking about people like overtly being racist to black people in the office, calling them racial slurs and stuff, and making jokes. Like there's this predominantly black department, they were calling it like, oh, it's the ghetto or whatever, and like calling people like the N-word to their face and all that sort of thing in the workplace here.
That's really bad.
And
so be fired.
Stuff like that. But I kind of realize like, if you're looking through the lens of critical race theory, and it's to the point where racism is like ingrained in the white person, where it's your subconscious racism that you just cannot
just give them training.
But then it's like sort of this person who's being questioned by this MP basically was of the attitude where it's like, well, we're all imperfect racists, and so like, well, we're going to try and push for this. We know this is something that needs to be corrected, but, with more training, we can all overcome our inherent racism. It's at the point where it's like,
right?
It's like you push this critical race theory enough, we become like racist apologists, where it's like, right? Anytime you see...
Look at Russia again. People are apologizing for the Nazis. They're like, oh,
exactly.
They're doing what's necessary. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Actually defending war crimes.
So,
wow.
But like, we're at the point now where like you cry wolf enough, right? Where it's like, oh, you're racist because you're doing this. Where when actual racism shows up, it's downplayed. It's like, oh well, we see if you see racism
doing it
it's like if you see racism every day, then
like you see
racism.
Actual, like I have black friends and they experience racism publicly and so on. And someone will point it out, they'll point it out, and then you'll see people on our side who are, normally quite opposed to actual instances of racism. You'll be like, oh, that guy's crying wolf. It's like, no, he's not. He's literally being discriminated against right now by a racist, and you're like okay with it just because the left has cried wolf so much.
Yeah.
And obviously the left is there because, black guy happens to be conservative. So they're more than happy to just keep spewing their hatred.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like when you see like racism as is defined in our critical race theory, which is not racism at all in terms of like, the microaggressions we were talking about and all of that, where it's like when racism becomes a part of your everyday life, where you just look around everywhere and all you see is racism and every institution is just racism. When real racism is slapping you in the face, it's like, well, we've already acknowledged that our society is inherently racist in every corner of its being. And so, you know what, like there's no point firing people over it because we're all racist, so we just need to give them some more education and training. Like it's crazy. So
they go after the mild cases.
Yeah,
the cases where a person's not actually a racist, he just I don't know, said something that was a microaggression, and then that guy gets fired for it. But the guy who's overtly racist gets away with it. I mean, hello, Justin Trudeau with a blackface.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives you the opportunity then when everything is racist, you can just be politically selective about it and punish the ones who you want. You can literally punish anyone because if anyone
everybody's guilty.
If everyone's guilty, then you can just, suddenly point out, oh, you are guilty because of this, and then punish them because it serves your political interests. And I think we've been seeing that all the time here in Canada in terms of just...
It's effective.
Yeah, you can just find an excuse to punish your political enemies and then go for it.
I think the Soviets had a term for that. It's like, find me the man and I'll make up the crime.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's, it's really great to see. But as the West is killing itself, I do have, small glimmers of hope here and there, right? We're starting... DeSantis, exactly, because we're seeing a lot of pushback. Because people are waking up to this, right? Like, they're all seeing it.
They are.
And... I feel like before, like we got to this place because we had so many people who were so apathetic towards this. They just kind of put their head down, and it's uncomfortable to address. It's uncomfortable to point out. It's disheartening. So you know what? Like I'm just going to keep my head down, do my own thing, sort of ignore it, whatever.
That's what they do. They're like, I'll buy a gun and live on a ranch somewhere.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
What about your kids, man?
Yeah,
like,
that's the
you
thing.
gotta think about your kids. You can't just do that. You can't run away because they're coming for you.
Yeah,
they're coming for all
exactly.
of us.
So I feel like what's happened now is we're at the point where it's gotten so extreme where you cannot be blind to it at this point. You're right. Like we're at a point in life where like all of society is forced to take sides now. Like I hate the fact that we're at that point of polarization, and it's like politics is in everything, but it is like politics has come to the forefront.
The personal is political.
Yeah, the personal is political. The culture war and politics have kind of merged together, and they're all at the forefront of everything. So
it's
I think
in real war too. You know.
Yeah. In literal war that we're seeing and experiencing now, it's all blending together, and
I hate it and I love it at the same time because I've like lived for this, right? I mean, it's like everything I've ever said coming through. I bet Alex Jones loves his life right now. He's like, I was right all along, you know, like I used to say in 2010 or something when Tumblr was a thing, right? And all this woke ideology was making its way through. I used to warn people. I was on the left back then. I was like, guys, we got to put a stop to this. These people are insane. I mean, they are canceling other people on Tumblr, so no big deal. But look, they're going to force their way into regular society. They're going to grow up. They're going to get jobs, and they're going to get into HR departments. And everyone's like, nah, they'll grow up. They'll join the real world. And turns out they joined the real world, and they made the real world bend to them, right?
Yeah.
CEOs are afraid of them. Like the old people, they'd rather just ignore them and let them do their thing and run their corporations to the ground and actually deal with it. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you see all the woke
Slack
corporations.
Is the only one that's Slack, right?
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
the only ones that put their foot down. They're like, no, we're going to fire you guys. Like, you cannot do this to our company. We don't want you here. You're not useful.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah.
That's the way it's done.
That's the way it's done. Because otherwise, you see all the woke corporations bowing to the mob, and it's like like everyone's had their heads
Disney,
down,
Coca-Cola.
buried in the sand in this, just going with the flow. But we're at the point now where it's like of course, you can still do that, but then you start to have real repercussions coming from that. But then, like people, I feel are waking up to this. And they're starting to be able to push back on it. They're giving opportunities to push back on this is the big thing. And so, I mean, I have hope for because we're expecting the big, like the school board thing, expecting like the 2022 midterm elections in the states happening that are expected to have a big old red wave because like all of these major issues of these woke politics, like this whole culture war stuff has come to the forefront, and that's like what people are voting on, like critical race and gender theory in schools. Yeah.
There was a poll yesterday in Florida. It was done in a Democratic district, so the majority of applicants there were like Democrats. And they asked them, and these are parents, like, what is the biggest issue for you? And they found that an overwhelming majority of Democrat parents, as well as, obviously Republican parents, said that CRT was a problem. CRT is a problem. So regular voters, like people who are not in politics, just regular people who are raising their kids, happen to be liberal, they don't want to see their kids demonized for the color of their skin.
Yeah.
Right? Whether they're black or white or Hispanic, they want their kids to be seen as individuals, not as black and brown bodies or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to also like it's waking up to the full gaslighting of the media, as we were saying as well. Like he's like waking up to all of this and then seeing like the distrust in media has become astounding. And that is also kind of playing into this in terms of it's like, okay, where do you turn to for your information? Because there's so much information out there. And people are starting to realize like you can't just trust something because it's been a big name in news for decades now, right? It's
They've been lying to you for decades. I mean, this is the thing. They lied to us for the past 2 or 3 years over whether it was elections or whether it was the pandemic or the lockdowns or literally anything like the trucker convoy. Look at how the media just lied about those guys, right? Yeah, called them Nazis and so on. And now they're lying about Ukraine. They're saying Ukraine is this good thing, and it's like I don't understand how people who can be so critical of the media, I've seen a lot of people very critical of the media, still fall for this Ukraine narrative. It's like, guys, they're lying to you. They've always been lying to you. Like the past, I would say 30 years they've been lying to you. The Gulf War was a lie. The whole thing was a lie. And it's time to wake up. It's time to realize that the media is not your friend.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like we're at a point now where we're able to have, there is so much information. Like previously, like if you look back at other times, like you only had the propaganda that the government and the media were putting out on you, right? Like in terms of there were
there's a way to talk to other people.
Yeah, exactly. There were these handful of outlets. Yeah, like the handful of outlets that would just like put out these, pre-prepared press releases and headlines, and they would feed you the narrative, and you'd accept it because that's all that was given. And now there's so much information out there, and there's the ability to turn to alternative sources, and of course that means there's a lot more genuine fake news out there and a lot of conspiratorial nonsense.
We're all adults.
Yeah. But there is that opportunity to actually be able to sift through, and of course, the more susceptible will fall prey to the nonsense out there. But for the discerning mind, there is the opportunity to, actually look for the truth out there.
And have conversations.
Have conversations, and so it's ironic almost that like while free speech is being throttled so much, it's still like it's like the free market of information is still like it's never been more rich and diverse. It's struggling. It's being clamped down on.
Back. Right? Because it's like if they were, if the truth didn't scare them, they wouldn't try to silence it.
Exactly.
That's the point, right? It's like Elon Musk said last night that it seems as though Twitter, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Twitter is not adhering to the principles of free speech, and in doing so, it's hurting democracy.
Yeah.
I mean, whether that's a hint at maybe he's going to start a new platform, I hope he is. But the fact is, everybody's noticing it because the vast majority of people who answered his poll said that Twitter and all these other social media platforms are censoring free speech. They're preventing people from having these discussions that are necessary for a healthy democracy to thrive.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's what it is. We go back to Trudeau talking about democracy, but then he's the one who wants to censor all of us. And
he's an authoritarian.
Exactly. It's in terms of like if you want a rich democracy to thrive, you have to have free speech. The First Amendment for a reason, guys, those of you who are in the States and hear that. Like, it's just,
You have the Charter of Rights in Canada,
Yeah, we do.
Like, it's in there. Free speech is in there, and yet somehow it's overridden,
Yeah, exactly. Like,
they do it.
I look at the Charter of Rights now, and it's like, all right, how much meaning does that really have on society? Like, over the past 2 years, I think, like, it's been overridden so much where it's like, you know what? Is it really worth the paper it's printed on at this point? Like, it's just, it's so sad to think, And people say, like, well, the Constitution is just a piece of paper.
Right. They call it a living constitution nowadays because they want to alter it, obviously. And it's so sad because, people fought and died for this, hundreds of years ago. And for I would say, a couple hundred years, America, Canada were held up as, bastions of liberalism. Maybe not liberalism, but bastions of democracy, bastions of freedom.
Bastions of liberal democracy. Like,
right, yeah, and now it's like the opposite. Now it's like, maybe liberalism was a mistake. It's gone too far.
Yeah, I mean, like I think of the U.S. and like the U.S. Constitution. It is literally the bedrock of their society, of their government. Like when you have, say, I don't know, a law enforcement officer who swears an oath to the Constitution in the United States, like that in American culture and society, like it permeates all the way through, and that like really means something. What's really sad to me is in Canada, we don't quite have that. Like our Charter of Rights and Freedoms didn't really come to us until the 80s. And like until it was formally written down. And for us, like, it really doesn't mean that much. Like when you if someone were to say to a police officer, like, oh, the oath you swore to the Constitution, be like, oh yeah, sure, that oath I swore to the Constitution. You sound like some nut who's going on about some fantastical idea of, oh yeah, swearing an oath to the Constitution. But like, I was thinking about that. Like I was listening to, I think it was a book or a podcast or something, and it was literally just like someone talking about an American officer who'd sworn an oath to the Constitution, how that really meant something. And it just, I don't know, it's sad to me how we don't have that same reverence for a constitutional document that is in the States. And like in the States, you can really like turn to that and just be like, no, I stand for these principles set out here in this document, and that is the bedrock of our society. And like it's something you can always turn to. And now it's under attack, of course. But I don't know.
We could probably thank Joe McCarthy for making the Constitution a bedrock of American culture. In the 1950s. And I know the guy's got a bad reputation. Again, the media lied about him. He was right all along. But he put in God we trust, because obviously America, God, it's like and the Constitution was there. I mean, like obviously Americans believed in the Constitution before, but he solidified it, right? He solidified it, and obviously after he died and all that, people demonized him. They made his name synonymous with cracking down on free speech, and it's ironic given that they're the ones doing that. They purposely tied his name to it to make him seem like the bad guy, when in reality, he was defending America.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I don't really know too much about it. Like, I'm not really sure the history there, so that's it. That's fascinating.
It is, yeah. I mean, it tells you how the media just lies about people, people in history. Like, I mean, like whoever writes the history books, I mean, they're the winners, right? They're the ones writing it. And obviously, progressives won that battle. So they get to write the history about him.
Yeah,
make him feel like a bad guy.
It's true. It's crazy. It's crazy stuff. I'm looking out at the time. I realizing we haven't read any of our chats. So let's throw some chats. We still got a few minutes here left on our hour. Let's throw to some chats here. See if we got any. This year. All right. Soaring Eagle. You gents are very talented. I bet my friends before the podcast began that I would contribute $1 each time I heard the word literally mentioned. There's still time left, so go easy on me. That is literally the truest thing.
Oh, yeah. Literally.
Oh, that's great. I you know what? Touche. Oh, that's so good. It's fun having that stuff pointed out. It's like, yeah, you said the word incredible 1,000,000 times that interview, or you literally said literally so many times.
So many times.
That's great.
You've literally misused the word literally 1,000,000 times.
Oh, that's so good. Well, yeah, in story we keep saying it, but I literally don't care. Spend all your money, my friend. You're gonna be broke after this.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Oh man, all right, let's see. Any other chats in here? Not at the moment. Okay, I'm looking at an old chat. All right, just the one chat. You know what? All right, that's cool. I was expecting a little more, but hey, no worries. Appreciate it, my friend. We still do have a couple minutes as we wind down this stream. So if there's anything anyone wants to get out to us, send us a chat. We'll address it. And you know, in case there's anything burning on your mind you want us to talk about in our final 5 minutes of this live stream, but yeah, actually, I think we did a pretty good job of covering most of the stuff going on. I'm looking at my list here of headlines and videos that we want to talk about. Pretty much hit it all. I mean, actually, we did touch on vaccine mandates still being on in Canada. I didn't touch this one headline video. Maybe this will be a video we end on. Basically, Trudeau's transport minister saying, because that's the one big vaccine mandate that is in place in Canada is the federal one for transport. If you want to go on a plane or a train.
Right, that's a trucker strike was about.
Well, like the trucker strike was like the border one for that was what sparked it. Like, I mean, the truckers thing was ending all mandates, right? But
you're right, yeah.
It was sparked from the cross-border thing for travel. But this is literally like if I want to get on a plane and fly to Alberta from where I'm in Toronto right now. If I want to fly west, just a few provinces over to Alberta, I would have to be vaccinated just to get on a plane and fly domestically. Or if I want to get on a train and go to Ottawa a couple hours to the east, I can't. Because you got to be vaccinated to get on a train. Like it's wild that's still in place. Well, we're dropping the mandates everywhere else, and they haven't even given any indication to that, right? In terms of when, basically saying, oh,
they don't want to drop it because I'll tell you why. I mean, and some people say, oh, it's a conspiracy theory, and it's because it's a movement passport. It's got nothing to do with health. It's a movement passport. Like China has this. They call it an internal movement passport. Literally, right?
It's true. It's like you got to comply if you want to move around within the country. Like it's sure.
And they can lock you down, right?
Yeah.
If they don't like who you are, you're persona non grata, you're enemy of the state. Well, they'll cancel your movement passport, and guess what? You can't move around anymore. You can't go to a job in a neighboring province.
Exactly.
That's how it's done.
Yeah, so it's like pretty much every province now, I think, has dropped their vaccine mandates and most like of their restrictions. At least like where I'm in Ontario.
In most countries.
Yeah,
right?
Like most countries.
Like in Europe. Like Europe may have dropped most of its mandates and so on, but guess what? Movement passport is still there.
Yeah.
Oh, I wonder why. Right? This was the point. It's never about health. It's not about your health. It's about putting this damn passport in there.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, the science is it's all good for where you are locally. You can still gather, no masks, no vaccine mandate, no problem. But if you want to start traveling,
people,
you're going to be killing everyone as soon as you get on a train or a plane. You deserve.
You just killed grandma. How dare you?
Exactly. As Trudeau says, you deserve to be able to know that the person beside you on the plane or train is vaccinated and has done the right thing. So
I hate that man. And you do an amazing impression of him. God.
Oh, because 90% of truckers did the right thing. He always gets that really pompous sort of You know what?
Oh, he's so full of it.
Yeah, he's so full of it. He's so fake. Yeah, we could go on ranting for hours about how awful Justin Trudeau is, how fake he is, how hypocritical.
He's an actor. He's like Zelensky.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing. It's like that made me turn my
actors.
Yeah.
Goddamn.
That's the thing. It's like when Zelensky, I'm like, oh, he was also an actor. Interesting. And then when he said that Trudeau was his inspiration to get into politics, I'm like, ooh, damn,
It's
okay.
Like, okay, red flag.
Red flag. Ooh, maybe I need to reassess this Zelensky character and maybe start doing my own digging rather than the media narrative of,
and
guys,
sure enough,
he's a Churchillian hero.
He banned opposition political parties.
Yeah.
He banned opposition media. Like, you're only allowed to have like one media channel that disseminates the official story to all the others.
Yeah,
like,
I found that
what
incredibly
a real liberal
ironic.
democracy. Amazing country. We gotta shed some blood for it. You know, why don't we just give up our arms? You know, give millions or even billions of dollars to Ukraine. Let them defend themselves. It's like, oh god. It's like, why are we spending all this money? Like, let the war end. Stop the war. You know, the fastest way to end it, stop giving them arms. Simple.
Stop giving them the arms. No, but we also have to do our patriotic duty as well to pay higher food and gas prices and all of that, and to suffer our own battle here.
Why can't we just, give humanitarian aid, help the refugees, like, invite them in, like take a million of them? Why not?
Honestly, that's fine. That's the stuff that I think really matters is humanitarian aid, refugees, do all that. Quit funding the war machine. That's what I say.
It's kind of funny, right? Like, no one's talking about helping the refugees. We're only talking about bombing Russia or fighting Russia or giving them weapons. You know, it's like, okay, what happened to the refugees? So every other war, it's always help the refugees, help the refugees. Here it's like, to hell with them.
Yeah.
Screw them.
Exactly.
Let Poland handle them. It's like, that's not fair to Poland. What the hell?
Yeah.
They have to shoulder this burden. It's like they're the only ones taking care of them. And, we could be doing more. Like, every country could be taking tens of thousands of Ukrainians. Why not?
Yeah. Like, I know in Canada we are taking some in. I'm just not sure.
But not enough.
Just how
Compared
many.
To, say, other countries like Syria.
Yeah.
Like all these European countries were more than happy to take like 1 million Syrians. But when it comes to Ukrainians, they're like, we don't need them.
Yeah, it's true. Well, our time is coming to a close here. It's been a good chat here. Basically, final. Oh, sorry. Oh, 2 more chats. All right, getting signals from the producers here. Before I start winding down here, another Soaring Eagle, touche. Okay, $7.
Nice.
Well, thank you, Soaring Eagle. Before I prematurely end things here, and Mika BC, our government hates every single one of us.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah,
you are nothing more than serfs. To these people, you're walking wallets, and one day you will own nothing, and you'll be happy. You'll just rent from the government. Yeah. Or BlackRock. Yeah.
Exactly.
Whichever.
The government doesn't care about you. It cares about your compliance and your money.
Yep.
I think that's a lesson there. I think, you'll get the occasional diamond in the rough, that one golden politician who can be a genuine champion of the people. It's very hard to get one of those actually into a position of power and
DeSantis,
not get them be corrupted. But yes, you get those rare gems, and then of course every establishment will fight tooth and nail to get them out of there, to demonize them, to slander them, to get them out. I think that's also a pretty good marker. It's
even in the media.
Yeah.
Even in the media. Right? Tucker Carlson, for example. Compare him to, say, Hannity. Hannity's a shill.
Yeah.
An established shill.
Exactly.
Tucker Carlson, on the other hand, everybody hates him now.
Yeah.
Because, he's daring to speak the truth. Wow.
Exactly. Or even just someone outside of the establishment, like who's so threatening, like Joe Rogan, who's dwarfing all the other media, even when he himself isn't in the media
Russell
establishment.
Brand.
Do everything they can to cancel him. Yeah, Russell Brand.
Yep.
So.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, exactly. Anyone who's faces the most opposition there.
Tim Pool these days. Yeah, people hate him.
Yeah, seriously, you get so much.
Matt Walsh. I'm so grateful that there's so many good people on our side. We are blessed to have them. Honestly, without their voices, we'd be screwed.
Yeah,
for real.
It's so true. So I mean, I guess final note: keep fighting the good fight, keep putting up the opposition, and you know what? Enjoy the freedom you get. Yesterday I went to a mall. Recently, after dropping our mask mandate, just walking around, I'm like, half the people were still all masked up, and some people were a little sketchy. But for the most part, there are people laughing and eating and going into stores maskless. I'm like, yes, good old American freedom, capitalism, the good life. You know what? And I was just thinking, like, you know what? The West may be eating itself, but at least I'm going to enjoy it while it's still all together there.
I hope it lasts. I hope it lasts. Honestly.
So, yeah. I mean, on that note, I would just remind everyone that our live streams. This one may be ending, but we do return every single weekday from noon till 1 Eastern time. Make sure you join us. It's been good chatting with you, Ian. And
Absolutely. Likewise.
until next time, as Menzies likes to say, stay sane, and I'll add, enjoy the freedom you have and fight for the ones you don't steal.
Mm-hmm.
Man, the red circle.